Why does the human body, shaped by 4 billion years of evolution, disassemble itself after 2 years in orbit? The answer is not radiation, it is something far stranger, something written into the architecture of life itself. A lone figure suspended in the cupola of a spacecraft. Earth turns beneath. No wind, no weight, no sound. Only the low hum of ventilation fans. From the outside it looks like peace. Inside, a countdown has begun. 730 days. That is the number engineers and flight surgeons whisper when no microphone is listening. 2 years. After that, something in human physiology stops cooperating with the mission. The clock starts on launch day. The space station orbits 400 kilometers up, moving 28,000 kilometers per hour, circling Earth every 90 minutes. To the crew, every 24 hours brings 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets, the most alien workplace ever built. And yet, biologically, it remains close to home, still inside Earth's protective magnetic field, shielded from deep cosmic storms. Even here, inside this shielded fortress of engineering, the human body still, inexplicably, begins to quietly unravel. The longest spaceflight belongs to Valeri Polyakov, a Russian physician who spent 437 days aboard Mir. He came back walking, barely. He wrote reports. He climbed from the capsule entirely under his own power. To many, this looked like proof that humans could endure anything. But Polyakov himself said something quieter, harder. At a certain point, he warned, the body stops adapting and simply starts to lose ground. He never returned. If the hidden limits of human endurance intrigue you, subscribe. More explorations of biology against the void await. Now consider Mars. A minimum energy trajectory there and back runs 500 to 900 days. There is no shortcut with today's chemical rockets.
The first crew to Mars will spend near 2 years. That environment is far harsher than the station, and that is why this number matters. Not as trivia, as a ceiling, as the wall every mission architect quietly plans around. Something in the body refuses microgravity. But here's the thing. For years, the public was told a comforting story about long-duration human spaceflight. Muscles weaken in orbit, so astronauts exercise 2.5 hours per day. Bones thin, they take drugs. Isolation strains the mind, so they receive counseling and family calls. Problem managed. Then, in 2015, everything changed. One experiment cracked that comforting story wide open. Scott Kelly and his identical twin Mark shared decades of DNA. Same childhood, same profession. NASA sent Scott to the station for 340 days straight. Mark stayed on the ground as a living control. When Scott returned, researchers compared them at cellular level.
They compared chromosomes and cells across the twins. What they found was not reassuring. Thousands of genes had shifted. In Scott's body, gene expression shifted. Some quieted, some flared. Most returned to baseline within a few months, but a small, stubborn fraction never did. His telomeres, the protective caps on chromosome ends, behaved unpredictably. His immune signaling had been rewritten. His retinas showed subtle deformation. 6 months back on Earth, changes persisted. Pieces of Scott Kelly remained in measurable ways in orbit. His flight lasted only 340 days, not 730 days, not even close to what a Mars mission demands from the human body. The real reason hides deeper than muscle loss. Human biology is tuned to one specific planet, one specific gravity. Remove those inputs long enough and the system does not slow down, it reorganizes itself around the absence. To understand what breaks first, start with fluid. On Earth, gravity pulls blood and lymph toward the feet. The heart works constantly to push it back up. In microgravity, that pull disappears. Fluids drift upward. The face swells, the legs shrink. Astronauts call it puffy head, chicken legs. It looks comic. It isn't. Inside the skull, redistributed fluid raises pressure against the back of the eyeball. The eye's shape begins to change. The retina flattens, the optic nerve swells. Doctors named the condition spaceflight-associated neuroocular syndrome, or SANS. Some astronauts return with permanent shifts in vision, new glasses, sometimes for life. Longer missions mean deeper damage. Then there is bone.
Without gravity's daily load through the skeleton, the body stops needing so much structural material. It reabsorbs calcium from the hips, the spine, the femur. The rate of loss is astonishing, measurable. Roughly 1% of bone mass is lost every single month. Over 1 year, that approaches advanced osteoporosis levels. Over 2 years, in the most vulnerable regions, the skeleton begins to resemble that of a patient decades older. Astronauts train harder than almost any athlete alive to slow this loss. Resistive exercise, treadmill runs in bungee harnesses. Targeted drug therapy helps, but does not stop the process. Bone density partially recovers on the ground, yet incompletely. The bone's fine internal lattice, giving it strength, may never fully return. And yet, the deadliest damage remains invisible. Beyond the shelter of Earth's magnetosphere, a very different environment waits, soaked in what scientists call galactic cosmic rays.
These aren't friendly photons of sunlight. They are atomic nuclei stripped of their electrons, hurled across the galaxy. Launched by ancient supernovae at nearly light speed, iron, silicon, carbon, heavy, charged, energies no aluminium wall politely absorbs. One such particle strikes a spacecraft. It does not simply stop, it shatters, producing a cascade of secondary radiation. Neutrons, protons, gamma rays ripple through the hull and into the crew, invisible shrapnel from one incoming atomic nucleus. A single heavy ion passing through a human cell can carve a track directly through the DNA strand itself. It leaves damage that ordinary repair enzymes struggle to fix, the quiet molecular sabotage of deep space biology. In laboratories, rodents exposed to simulated deep space radiation develop lesions in the central nervous system, behavior changes, memory falters. Whether the same effects appear in humans remains uncertain, but the trend so far is not at all comforting.
NASA maintains a career radiation limit, a lifetime ceiling above which the risk of fatal cancer becomes unacceptable. Current estimates suggest a Mars crew would burn through most of that lifetime budget in a single round trip. 2 years in deep space, and the biological account is essentially empty. Every future flight borrowed against ruin. Radiation is only half of the collapse. Imagine if the defenses keeping you alive on Earth malfunctioned in orbit. That is exactly what happens. The immune system in space becomes strangely unbalanced. Some parts overreact, others fall quiet. Inflammatory markers rise. Antibody responses weaken. Viruses that most adults carry silently for life begin to wake up. Herpes simplex, varicella zoster, Epstein-Barr. Flight surgeons have documented these latent viruses reactivating mid-mission on repeated flights. Some astronauts develop cold sores, others develop shingles, the painful condition caused by chickenpox virus emerging from dormancy. Most cases stay mild, but on a 2-year Mars mission, there is no return flight for medical evacuation. A single serious infection, far from Earth, in a body with suppressed immunity, becomes a very different problem. The gut microbiome, trillions of bacteria that digest food, train immunity, even regulate mood, also shifts dramatically. Diversity drops. Certain strains flourish while others fade. Astronauts report digestive changes, altered taste, subtle daily disturbances. The heart, meanwhile, forgets how to work against gravity. Blood vessels grow stiffer, the muscle itself begins to shrink. It adapts to a load that no longer exists.
After landing, many crew members struggle with orthostatic intolerance. The simple act of standing sends their blood pressure plummeting. Some faint. On Mars, this becomes catastrophic. After months in transit, first steps onto Martian soil would fall upon bodies quietly deconditioned in every direction. Then there is the air. Sealed spacecraft accumulate carbon dioxide at concentrations far higher than any city on Earth. Chronic exposure to elevated carbon dioxide has been linked to headaches, slowed reaction times, and impaired decision-making. On a mission where one keystroke can vent the air, cognitive fog is not a nuisance, it is a hazard. And sleep. In orbit, the sun rises every 90 minutes, 16 times a day. The circadian rhythm is ambushed. Even with strict lighting schedules and sleep medications, most astronauts get less rest than they need, night after night. Sleep debt compounds. Mood suffers.
Then the psychological ceiling begins to crack under months of orbital confinement. Isolation in a small metal volume with the same colleagues for 2 years is an unmatched stress test. Analog missions in Antarctica come close. Underwater habitats come closer, yet nothing quite matches the true orbital reality. The nearest hospital sits 100 million kilometers behind you, silent, unreachable, indifferent to any emergency aboard. Return for a moment to Valeri Polyakov. 437 consecutive days aboard the aging Mir station. When he landed on the Kazakh steppe in 1995, he insisted on walking, unaided, from the descent capsule. He wanted to prove that a human could still stand after a journey the length of a Mars mission. Photographs from that day show a man in enormous strain, upright by pure will, refusing to be carried. In the years afterward, his bones and cardiovascular system slowly rebuilt. He returned, remarkably, to active medical work. He was in many ways a triumph of Russian space medicine, proof that endurance itself could be engineered. But researchers documented losses that took years to reverse, and some, quietly, never fully reversed at all. His story is often cited as proof long-duration flight is survivable. It is rarely cited as proof it's easy. Scott Kelly's 340 days brought a similar picture. Lingering inflammation, cognitive changes measurable on precision tests. Cardiovascular readjustment stretched across months. And Kelly had the full support of Earth: clean air, gravity, hospitals, family. A Mars crew, at the equivalent point in their mission, would still be en route home, entirely unsupported. When flight surgeons model a full Mars mission, outbound crews, surface stay, inbound crews, they overlay individual curves. Bone loss, vision change, radiation dose, immune drift. In the first year, most of these curves rise gently. Countermeasures blunt them. But near the 18 to 24-month mark, the curves diverge from anything previously observed in returning astronauts. Damage that was reversible starts to look permanent. Recovery time on Earth stretches from months into years of rehabilitation. In some models, it never fully completes. The secret lies in what cannot be undone once returned to Earth. Here, then, is the synthesis. There is no single organ that fails precisely at the 2-year mission threshold. There is no cliff of sudden death. Instead, 4 independent processes cross their individual thresholds within the same window. Radiation exposure, bone demineralization, ocular deformation, and immune dysregulation, each rising simultaneously toward its own physiological breaking point. And no countermeasure yet invented closes all 4 gaps at once.
Exercise slows bone loss but cannot prevent it. Diet slows the loss but cannot rebuild the internal lattice. Shielding blunts radiation but cannot stop heavy ions completely. Medication suppresses viral reactivation but does not restore full immune function. Each protection buys only weeks or additional months. Stack them together and they buy roughly 2 years of viable spaceflight. Beyond that, accumulated deficits begin interacting dangerously. Weakened bones under the stress of Martian gravity. Impaired vision reading a critical instrument display during descent operations. A slowed immune system meeting an unfamiliar microbe. Radiation-damaged tissue with sharply reduced capacity to repair itself. That is why flight surgeons speak of a biological point of no return. Not a moment when death arrives, but a moment when the body can no longer be fully brought back. A disability threshold, quietly permanent.
A line past which a returning astronaut may spend the rest of their life managing lasting consequences. And so every serious Mars architecture obsesses over one variable above almost all others: transit time itself. Cut the journey, save a body. Every day shaved from cruise phase is a day of radiation not absorbed, a percentage of bone not lost, a night of poor sleep not endured, a heart quietly spared. If a spacecraft could reach Mars in 3 months instead of 9, the 2-year wall retreats over the horizon. The mission becomes a different problem, one closer to what astronauts already survive aboard the orbital station. The next generation of ships is already answering back. Engineers returning to an idea as old as spaceflight: artificial gravity. Spin a section of a spacecraft. Let centrifugal force press the crew outward against the deck. Simulate weight without the weight of a planet. Prototypes imagine long tethers, rotating rings, small internal centrifuges. The engineering is non-trivial, the mass penalty is real, but every study points to the same firm conclusion. Even partial gravity, for even part of each day, would dramatically slow bone loss and cardiovascular deconditioning alike. Perhaps the single most powerful countermeasure available to any Mars crew, and yet it has never truly flown. Propulsion is the other lever. Chemical rockets sit near the very limits of what chemistry itself can offer. Nuclear thermal engines, in which a reactor heats propellant to enormous temperatures, promise roughly double chemistry's efficiency. Nuclear electric propulsion, using reactors to power ion drives, offers even greater fuel economy at the cost of trust. Both approaches dramatically shorten Mars transit. Some serious proposals cut a one-way journey to under 100 days. At that pace, the 2-year wall stops shaping the mission at all. Shielding is being reconsidered from first principles. Aluminium is a mediocre shield against heavy ions, often shattering into dangerous secondary particles under prolonged cosmic bombardment. Hydrogen-rich materials, polyethylene, water, even liquid hydrogen fuel itself, perform far better, absorbing radiation energy safely. Some concepts wrap the crew habitat inside the ship's own water tanks, using drinking supply as radiation armor. Others sketch magnetic deflectors, miniature magnetospheres designed to steer charged particles harmlessly around the entire traveling vehicle. Each approach faces its own engineering trial. Each pushes the biological ceiling for human spaceflight further upward. Pharmacology is the quieter frontier. Researchers now study molecules that scavenge radiation-induced damage inside human cellular tissue. Drugs may preserve bone density with fewer side effects. Compounds may stabilize the immune system under chronic stress. Early trials remain cautious, but the direction is unmistakable. The body may soon be reinforced from within, too. Taken together, these advances imply something quite remarkable. The 2-year wall is not, in truth, a law of nature. It is only a description of current technology meeting current biology. Move either variable and the wall moves. Astronauts of the 21st century may look back at the 730-day limit quite differently. Just as sailors of an earlier age look back at scurvy, a solved problem almost entirely forgotten. But one frontier decides whether humans ever live for good. And that frontier, in the end, is time itself. Every countermeasure shares the same underlying premise: travel faster, spend less time exposed, return before the damage compounds. The human body evolved on a planet with a specific gravity and a specific atmosphere for a specific reason. It will always, in some deep sense, belong here. 2 years away is a bargain biology never agreed to. And yet, against all odds, humans keep going up. They accept the calcium loss and the vision change. They accept the radiation dose written into their medical charts, the sleepless nights, and the reactivated viruses within. Because beyond the 2-year wall lies the possibility of walking on another world, leaving footprints in red dust. Of proving that the species did not end its story on the planet where it began, but somewhere new. The body has a built-in orbital deadline, roughly 2 years, past which the damage stops being fully reversible. Not a hard line of death, but a soft line of permanent change that every mission architect knows well. Every future ship is designed around it. Every advance in propulsion, shielding, and medicine chips away at it. If these engineering answers surprised you, this channel has more films about how humanity confronts biology and physics. If you want to see how next-generation propulsion could shrink the journey to Mars in 2 weeks, keep watching. Subscribe to continue the exploration. Many more stories ahead about how our world and worlds beyond are built. The journey outward has only just begun, and humanity's greatest challenge